The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not be afraid any longer, little flock, for your Father is pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your belongings and give alms. Provide money bags for yourselves that do not wear out, an inexhaustible treasure in heaven that no thief can reach nor moth can destroy. For where your treasure is, there also will your heart be. Gird your loins and light your lamps, and be servants who await their master's return from a wedding, ready to open immediately when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds vigilant on his arrival. Amen, I say to you, he will gird himself, have them recline at table, and proceed to wait on them. And should he come in the second or third watch and find them prepared in this way, blessed are those servants. Be sure of this, if the master of the house had known the hour when the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come." Then Peter said, "Lord, is this parable meant for us or for everyone?" And the Lord replied, "Who then is the faithful and prudent steward whom the master will put in charge of his servants to distribute the food allowance at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom the master on arrival finds doing so. Truly I say to you, the master will put the servant in charge of all his property. But if that servant says to himself, 'My master is delayed in coming,' and begins to beat the men servants and the maid servants, to eat and drink and get drunk, then the servant's master will come on an unexpected day at an unexpected hour, and will punish the servant severely and assign him to a place with the unfaithful. That servant who knew the master's will but did not make preparations nor act in accord with his will shall be beaten severely. And the servant who was ignorant of his master's will but acted in a way deserving a severe beating shall be beaten only lightly. Much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more." The Gospel of the Lord. So I just found out like 10 minutes ago that this Mass is being filmed. So I guess we have to behave ourselves a little, at least a little bit, right? So imagine for a moment the Doe family, parents John and Jane, son Johnny. The parents decide that they haven't been away for a while, so they decide to go off on Labor Day weekend, have a nice little extended weekend together. And Johnny, he has a big job interview on that Tuesday. So he's going to stay at home. He's going to watch the house, feed the dog, and really prepare for that job interview. Well, Saturday morning rolls around. They give their hugs, I love yous, and I can't wait to see you when you get back, and off the parents go. Well, Tuesday's a long ways away. There's plenty of time to prepare, right? So all day Monday, we can prepare for that job interview on Monday. That'll be plenty of time. And the dog takes like an hour to walk and feed, so we have like 23 hours left in the day to do stuff. So Johnny decides to have a friend or two over, which turns into 5 or 6, which seems to turn into every single acquaintance he's ever known. So Saturday night rolls around, and party's going going really well. The music's really pumping. The drinks are flowing. Everybody's having a good time. And Johnny goes to go get a beverage from the kitchen, and as he turns into the hallway, runs into Mom and Dad. Oh no. What happened to I can't wait to see you when you get back, because they're back, but he's not so happy to see them, is he? No, what happened here? So and I can say that if I was in Johnny's shoes, I don't think the police would have ever found my body, right? And my parents, who love, I love my parents tremendously, and they love me tremendously, but it would not have gone well. Right? Today's gospel passage, Christ is exhorting us, telling us that he will be coming again. The Son of Man will return in his glory to bring us home. But we don't know the time or the hour when that will happen. So we must be prepared. We must be prepared constantly for that return of Christ. And so when many people hear of this second coming, they have these ideas of, judgment and fire, and, why wouldn't God tell us that time? Some people get this idea of, God's like waiting up there to see if he can catch the sinners in the act when he comes again at that unexpected time. Is that how God is that how Jesus is treating this? No. Read the first line of this gospel. Do not be afraid any longer, little flock, for your Father is pleased to give you the kingdom. This is not a God who's waiting to catch us in the act of sin. He knows everything at all points in time. He is coming in love to save us. But we must be prepared. So, how exactly should we approach our preparation and our vigilance for Christ? See, in a sense, we are in the shoes of Johnny. Like Mom and Dad have gone away. Right? Christ has gone away to his wedding feast in the glories of heaven. He still is with us, of course, in the Eucharist, and we still have communion with him. But he will return. And so, if we're like Johnny and decide to throw that party, then that is when we should be expecting the fear, the shame, the punishment. But on the other hand, what if the story was played out differently? What if, Mr. and Mrs. Doe went off for the weekend, and Johnny decided to stay at home, put a good extra bit of studying and preparation in for this job interview. He had a nice little outing dinner with his friends, and since he had that extra time, what he did was he decided to get some chores done around the house that his parents didn't ask him to do. He cut the grass, trimmed the bushes, did a little sweeping around the house. If he was really bold, maybe he did the laundry, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, what would happen in that case if his parents came home a little early? Would there be any anger? Would there be any shame? Would there be any fear? No. They would be nothing but joy. He would be happy that he was able to give this gift to his parents, and his parents would be so happy to receive the gift that they hadn't expected. Now, what does that mean in our relationship with God? If we are using our time on earth to just do whatever we want and not thinking about what we're doing with respect to our relationship with Christ, then we do have a cause to live in fear of Christ and his second coming. But if we are striving for holiness, if we are striving to be saints, then the second coming of Christ is filled with the joy and the peace of being able to be with our Lord for all eternity. When is that going to be? We don't know. It could be by the end of this Mass. It could be next week. It could be 1,000 years from now. The timeline's not important. Our preparation is. If we are preparing for Christ to come, it doesn't matter when he does, because we are being vigilant. The only thing that we have to worry about is not holding on to those favorite sins of ours. The sins that make us feel good, the sins that we like to hold on to. Everybody knows what their favorite sin is. Everybody here has one, right? And so why is it that we don't want to let that go for our preparation for Christ? Why is it that we want to hold on to that sin instead of truly striving to be a saint? I think there's two reasons. Of course, we have like a fallen human nature. Like Adam and Eve broke the human race. That's a good way to, a good legacy to have, right? I broke the human race today. But that's just a fact of life that we live with. That we have this concupiscence in our soul, that we desire these sins more than we desire a relationship with God. But there's two main reasons, I think. One is from the beginning of the gospel today. Where your treasure is, there also will your heart be. See, I had a friend in seminary. He had one of those lines that, I call it a heart dart, those lines that hit you right here. It's what you do in your free time tells you what is most important to you. What you do in your free time tells you what is most important to you. And if that thing is not Christ, then our treasure is not Christ, and our heart is not truly with him. And we can't love God with a divided heart. He doesn't ask for much, he just asks for all of us. And so many times in our relationship with God, it's not a matter of knowing what we should be doing. It's a matter of not loving enough to do it. If we're in love with somebody, like every love story is written about somebody who does something crazy out of love. They will go to any bounds for the person that they love. If we have God as the true love of our soul, then he truly is our treasure, and we will go to great lengths to be with him. So we need to love greatly, and we need to love God greatly every single day. The second reason why we don't want to let go of those sins that make us, that really are the barrier to us striving for true sainthood is fear. Fear. What are we afraid of? If I let this sin go, I fear that I won't be happy. If I let this sin go, I fear that I won't be happy. We are afraid that God won't be enough. And when we put it like that, it sounds pretty funny, doesn't it? The God of the universe, the God that invented science, the God that loved galaxies into existence out of nothing, the God who made the human heart, and the God who is love. Can the God who is love and who knows us to the depths of our soul, is that a God who would command us to do something that would make us unhappy? God made us for himself. God made us with a God-shaped hole right in the middle of our soul. And the more we can try to fill that hole with whatever we want. We can try to fill it with whatever sin, whatever thing in this world that we want. But only God can fill that hole in the center of our hearts. Only God will ever be enough, and our hearts will always be restless until we rest in him. So, if we truly turn, if we realize that we need not fear, Christ commands us today, do not fear my little flock. Right? Strive for holiness. Strive to be a saint. We don't know when Christ is coming. But what we do know is that we need to love God boldly, without fear, every single day, with all of our heart, with all of our mind, with all of our soul, and with all of our strength. We're not guaranteed of tomorrow. We can't change what happened yesterday. So all we have is right now. Right now, decide to boldly love Christ above everything else and to love without fear. Because when Christ comes and we are preparing with that bold love above all, with God at the center of our soul, then there will be no cause for fear when he comes. Christ is coming. Don't fear. Just be prepared.